what does it mean? It means that the consumer will pay twice as much for the same amount of goods and services, right? So today, if he has paid 50 rupees for a kg of tomatoes, tomorrow he might have to pay 100 rupees, right? Why is this happening? Because the money in the economy is increasing. That is what the quantity theory of money says, right? So this increase in price levels, what would it eventually do? It would eventually result in a increasing inflation level. Okay. So what is inflation? Inflation is a measure of the rate of rising prices of goods and services in a particular economy. So the same forces that influence the supply and demand of any commodity, they will also influence the supply and demand of money. So, so what does it mean? It means that an increase in the supply of money decreases the marginal value of money. Okay, that means when money supply increases, if all the other parameters are unchanged, the buying capacity of one unit of currency decreases. Okay, I repeat, when the money supply increases, keeping all the other factors constant, the buying capacity of one unit of currency, 1 rupee of currency, okay, decreases. Now, why does it decrease? Because as a way of adjusting for this decrease in money's marginal value, the prices of goods and services also rise. So this results in a higher inflation level. And then quantity theory of money also makes a fundamental assumption. What is this fundamental assumption? This assumption is that the quantity of money in an economy has a large influence on its level of economic activity. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that the change in the money supply results either in the change in the price levels or in the change in the supply of goods and services, or both. Price levels aina perugochu, supply on goods and services aina change avvachu. This or that or both, right? In addition, the theory also assumes that changes in the money supply are the most important or the primary reason for changes in spending, right? Now, what is the underlying implication of this assumption? The underlying implication is that value of money is determined by the amount of money available in an economy. Ante how much of money is available in an economy, adi determine chestundi value of money enti ani, right? So an increase in money supply em chestadi, money supply increase ainappudu value of the money decrease avutundi, right? When there is an increase in the money supply, the value of the money decreases. Why? Because an increase in money supply also causes the rate of inflation to increase. See, when we are saying tomatoes which were 50 rupees per kg is now 100 rupees, what does it mean? It means the value of the money has come down. Okay, so as inflation rises, purchasing power decreases. So what is the consequence of inflation? Purchasing power. Inflation has a direct impact on the purchasing power. As inflation rises, purchasing power decreases. So what exactly is purchasing power? Purchasing power is the value of rupee. It is the value. So when we're talking in India, purchasing power, it is value of rupee. When we are talking about purchasing power in US, so it is the value of a US dollar. Okay. So what is purchasing power? Purchasing power is the value of a rupee in terms of how many goods or services that 1 unit of rupee can buy, right? So when the purchasing power of a unit of currency decreases, what does it mean? It requires more units of that currency to buy the same quantity of goods or services. So earlier I needed just 50 rupees to buy a kg of tomatoes. But today, take for example, I need 100 rupees. That means the purchasing power of rupee has gone down, right? Then this quantity theory of money also has two underlying assumptions. And those two underlying assumptions are new money should actually circulate in the economy or come into the economy, only then inflation will arise. With the existing money, no, inflation will never increase. That is the first assumption. Second assumption is Inflation is a relative concept. That means we are always comparing it with something else, time period. That is it. That is what it means. Right? Now, the basic equation for the quantity theory is called the Fisher equation. Okay? Why is it called as a Fisher equation? It is called as Fisher equation because this basic equation was developed by an American economist called Irving Fisher. Okay? I'm not able to share the PPT, otherwise you would have seen the formula clearly. But the formula is M into V is equal to P into T. Right? The basic equation for the quantity theory is M into V is equal to P into T. Right? So what does M denote there? M denotes money supply. V is the velocity of V is the velocity of circulation. So velocity of circulation and enti, number of times that money changes hands. How fast is the money moving in an economy? That is what velocity of circulation implies. T is the average price level and T is the volume of transactions of goods and services. Right? So there are three basic assumptions of the quantity theory of money. What are these three basic assumptions? First assumption is that real economic output is determined by the factors of production. Okay? That means the real economic output in an economy that is determined by the factors of production, and it is not determined by the money supply. Okay? And the next assumption of quantity theory of money is this theory assumes a one-way causal relationship. One way. What is that one way? Money supply affecting prices, but not the other way. Prices don't affect money supply, but money supply affects prices. The final assumption is that the velocity of money or how frequently it changes hands is a constant in an economy at any given point of time. Right? These were the assumptions of quantity theory of money. Now let us look at some of the limitations of quantity theory of money. See, the assumption that I just now told you, that velocity of money is constant. This assumption itself is the biggest limitation of this theory, right? So, see, what happens in real world economy is all these variables, they are it is quite possible for them to fluctuate because, there are always changes in consumer behavior, there are changes in interest rates. So, this theory may be ineffective in predicting outcomes in such kind of situations where interest rates are very low or like near zero. Right? That is one limitation. That is the first and the foremost limitation. The second limitation, this theory neglects factors like technology, government policies, international trade, what is their impact on prices, all those things this theory completely overlooks. Okay. Then this theory also fails to take into account any short-term economic dynamics. All those things are completely ignored in this theory, right? Then this theory assumes, or this theory focuses mostly on money supply, whereas there is no enough focus on the demand side factors. There is focus on the supply side, but there is no focus on the demand side, right? And another limitation for this theory is, accurately measuring the money supply or accurately measuring the velocity of money is not that easy. It's a huge challenge. And if these are not done properly, if they are not measured accurately, then there could be discrepancies in assessing their relationship with other parameters like prices and all that. Right? Then another limitation is this theory is not very applicable or is less suitable for open economies where there is a lot of international trade, a lot of capital flows and, exchange rate concepts and all those things. This theory would not hold true in such kind of economies. And another limitation is this theory is more suitable or is better at predicting long-term trends rather than short-term fluctuations, right? Then this theory overlooks financial market and asset price impacts. What is the outlook of the whole financial market, and what are the changes in the asset prices? Those two things this theory ignores, right? Then the next topic that we're going to discuss is the two versions of the quantity theory of money, right? So there are two versions of this quantity theory of money. The first one is called as the transaction approach. Transaction approach is also called as the Fisher's transaction approach, named after the economist Irving Fisher. Okay, so this Fisher's transaction approach may again be explained with the following equation, where MV is equal to PT. M is the total supply of money in an economy. V is the velocity of circulation of money in an economy. P is the general price level, and T is the total transaction in physical goods. So what does it mean? It means that in any economy, the total value of all the goods sold during that period, P into T, okay? P. So the total value of all the goods sold during that period would be equal to the total quantity of money that is spent during that year, right? So how do you derive the total quantity of money spent during that period? By multiplying M and V. M is the total supply of money, and V is the velocity of circulation of money, right? But this approach, the transaction approach or the Fisher's transaction approach, this has certain assumptions. What are those assumptions? Those assumptions are that at full employment, total physical transactions in an economy will be constant. Okay, and the second assumption is the velocity of circulation remains constant in the short run. And the reason is because it largely depends on the spending habits of the people, and spending habits of the people don't change overnight. Spending habits do change, but they change in the long run. See, in this month, my spending pattern was something. Next month, my spending pattern will not automatically change. So the next assumption is the velocity of circulation remains constant in the short run. Now, when these two assumptions are made, what does it show? It shows that there is an exact proportional relationship between money supply and the price level. Okay. So, in other words, what are we trying to say? We are trying to say that the level of prices in an economy, they are directly proportional to the quantity of money in circulation. So, therefore, I told you earlier when I was talking about it, if you double the total supply of money, the price level would also double. Right? Now, one more thing that needs to be noticed here is that the Fisher equation, it includes only the primary money or currency money. But modern economy, as you all know, it extensively uses demand deposits or credit money. So that aspect is not included here. And another thing about this transaction approaches, see, this transaction approach can explain about inflation, hyperinflation during war times or during some emergency times. But it cannot explain the inflation that happens during normal peacetime, like at present inflation happening in India, that cannot be explained using the Fisher's equation. So to overcome this shortcoming, there is another approach which is called as the cash balance approach, or it is also known as the Cambridge version. So what is this cash balance approach? The cash balance approach, it is expressed in a form of a formula, which is P is equal to KR by M. Okay, P is equal to KR by M.
KY by M.
Yes.
KY by M, no, ma'am. P equal to.
That is another formula. We will. This formula can also be represented in that format.
Okay.
Okay. What is P? P is the, I will also come to that point. P is equal to KR by M. What is P? P is the purchasing power of money. Okay. P is the purchasing power of money. And K is the proportion of money that people like to hold in the form of money, right? That part of their income that they want to hold in the form of money. And R is the volume of real income, and M is the stock of supply of money in the country at a given time. Okay, so that is how the cash balance approach is expressed as. So now this equation shows that the purchasing power of money or the value of money, that is whatever we are representing by P, it is directly proportional to K and R, but inversely proportional with M. Okay. And since P, what is P here? Purchasing power of money. Since this P is the reciprocal of the general price level, right? This P is, see, purchasing power of money is denoted by small p, whereas general price level is denoted by capital P. So we are saying that purchasing power of money is reciprocal of, or in other words, inversely proportional to the general price level. It can be denoted as small p is equal to 1 by capital P. Okay, so therefore, the equation P is equal to KR by M, that also can be expressed alternatively as 1 by P is equal to KR by M. Or if you shift M here, it becomes M is equal to KRP, right? And now if we multiply the volume of real income, right, that is R by the general price level, what do we get? We get the national income. You get the national income. National income is represented by Y. National income is represented by Y. So M therefore becomes KY. M becomes KY. Right? So M, that is the stock of supply of money, is nothing but K is, excuse me, K is nothing but the proportion of income that people like to hold in the form of money into Y, that is the national income, right? Now, these two approaches, the transaction approach and the cost approach, they have some similarities as well as some dissimilarities. Now, let us see what are the similarities, right? What are the similarities? Both these approaches, they arrive at the same conclusion. What is that same conclusion? That there is a direct and proportional relationship between the quantity of money and the price level. Okay, this is the same conclusion. And then the other same conclusion is that there is an inverse proportional relationship between the quantity of money and the value of money. Okay, so that is the first similarity. Second similarity is, see, both the approaches more or less have similar equations. The first one was P is equal to MV by T, right? This is similar to P is equal to M by KT. But what is the only difference? The only difference is the symbols B and K, which are reciprocal to one another, right? So you can substitute, you can derive these both the formula in such a manner that they both are similar, right? And next similarity between both these approaches is they both view money as the same phenomenon. So the different symbols that are given to total quantity of money in both the approaches refers to the same phenomenon, right? So that those are the similarities. But there are also some dissimilarities. What are those dissimilarities? The first one is the see, the Fisher's approach. It stresses the supply of money, whereas the cash balance approach or the Cambridge approach, as it is called as, it lays a more emphasis on the demand of money to demand for money to hold cash. Okay, that is the first one. Second one, the flow and stock concept that they are called. See, the Fisher approach, it regards money as a flow concept. That means money is considered in terms of flow of money expenditures. Whereas the Cambridge approach, the Cambridge version, it regards money as a stock concept. Okay, so the money supply refers to a given stock at a particular point of time. Right? Then coming to the fourth one, the transaction and the income velocities. So the Fisher approach emphasizes the importance of transaction velocity of circulation, whereas the Cambridge version, it lays emphasis on the income velocity of the that part of income which is held in cash balance. Okay. Then coming to which approach is better? Is the transaction approach better or is the cash balance approach better? Okay. So the cash balance approach is considered to be superior to the transaction approach on certain parameters. What are those parameters? So the first one, see, the transaction approach, it emphasizes on the medium of exchange function of money only. Previous class, if you remember, we talked about functions of money, medium of exchange function, okay, store of value function. These are all different functions of money that we discussed in the previous class. So this transaction approach, it only emphasizes on the medium of exchange function of money. Whereas this cash balance, it emphasizes equally on both the functions, that is medium of exchange function as well as store of value function. So therefore, we can say that this approach is consistent, the cash balance approach. Okay, this approach is consistent with that broader definition of money. And the next one is, see, the transaction approach, when it is defining or when it is explaining the determinants of V, it stresses on the mechanical aspects of the payments process, the mechanical aspects. Whereas the cash balance approach, okay, the cash balance approach, it is more realistic. Why it is more realistic? Because it is, it is behavioral in nature. It is built around the demand function of money. And then coming to the analytical technique. See, cash.
Hello. Ma'am, your voice is not audible, ma'am. Hello.
Right. So next
Voice.
coming to, can you hear me now?
Hi, hearing, ma'am.
Okay.
Voice
Okay,
is
so the next, okay. So the next topic that we are going to come is value of money. So what
value of
exactly is value? Value is nothing but the ratio of exchange between two goods. Okay. So it is money that measures the value through
Ma'am,
price.
page number?
See, I told you I don't have the book with me. This unit 3, what we are discussing. the material that you have with you, we don't have that material with us. So draw the page
11.
numbers. I can only tell you which unit is in the syllabus.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, see 3. Right? So this value of money, what is value of money? Value of money then is the quantity of goods in general that will be exchanged for 1 unit of money. So this value of money is nothing but its purchasing power, the quantity of goods and services that it can purchase. So what money can buy depends on the level of prices. And when the price level rises, a unit of money can purchase less goods than before. So then what do we say? We say that the money has depreciated. The value of money has fallen down. Similarly, a fall in prices, what does it signify? It signifies a unit of money can buy more than before. Right? The next topic that we need to look at is index numbers. So what is this index number? Index number measures changes in the value of money or price level. Okay, index number. What is the use of index number? The use of index number is that it measures the changes in the value of money or price level. So an index number is a statement in a form of a table which represents a change in the general price level. Okay. So whenever it has to be found out to what extent prices have increased or fallen, then an index number is prepared, right? So in every advanced country, index numbers are regularly prepared. So there are certain steps that are followed while preparation of index numbers. And those steps are nothing but selection of the base year, selection of commodities, collection of prices, finding percentage change, and averaging. Okay. So the first thing that is necessary for preparing an index number is you have to select a base year. So it is the year with which we wish to compare the present prices, so that you have to see how much the prices have increased or decreased. The next one is selection of commodities. So the next step is to select the commodities that have to be included in the index number. Not all commodities can be included. So the commodities, which commodities we are taking, that will depend on the purpose for which the index number is being prepared. So take for example, if you want to know how a particular class of people have been affected by a change in the general price level, then what we should do, we should include only those commodities which that particular class of people will be consuming. Right? And the third one is collection of prices. So after you have selected the commodities to include in the index, now you have to determine their prices. And usually retail prices are the best for the purpose, because it is the retail prices that a commodity is actually consumed. We don't consume commodities at wholesale price. We consume them at retail prices. So it is always retail prices which are best. But the problem with retail prices is, since they vary a lot from one place to another place, and there is no proper record of them. So therefore, wholesale prices are taken into consideration. And the next fourth one is finding the percentage change. So the next step is to represent the present prices as the percentage of the base price years. So this base price is equated to 100. Whatever is the base price, that is equated to 100, and then the current year's prices are represented accordingly. Right? And finally, when it comes to averaging, what do? You take the average of both the base year and the current year figures in order to find out the overall change. So what are the uses of index numbers? Index numbers, they're not only used just to measure changes in the price levels or changes in the value of money. They can also be used to measure quantitative change, right? So See, we can prepare index numbers of wages, imports, exports, industrial production, employment, profits. We can prepare index numbers of all of these. And see, such quantitative changes that are measured by index numbers, they can also indicate the social and economic trends, and they can help in framing policies with respect to these aspects. For example, an index number cost of living can guide us in adjustment of wages to the changing prices, how wages needs to be changed considering the present prices. Right? And index numbers can also be used to compare the economic conditions of a class of people at two different periods. Particular class of people, how did their economic condition change in the last 5 years, last 10 years, last 2 years, or before COVID, after COVID. Such kind of comparison can be done. Index numbers can also be used as a basis for an equitable discharge of contracts relating to borrowing and lending. So then when prices are increasing, the creditors could lose. So when prices rise, the debtor may be asked to pay a correspondingly higher sum in order to discharge the debt. Now these index numbers also have some limitations. What are the limitations? Approximation. Approximation is a major limitation. See, index numbers at best are only approximations. They cannot be taken as absolute correct values. This particular number, they can be interpreted in many different ways. So we can only say that at the best they are approximations. That is the first limitation. The next limitation is international comparisons become difficult. So index numbers for international comparisons, they present several difficulties. The result is, what happens that such comparisons are difficult, right? So that is one problem. And then comparisons, another limitation with index numbers is the comparisons between different times. That becomes difficult, right? So, see, it is not easy to bring about a comparison between two different periods. What happens, see, over longer periods, some popular commodities are completely replaced by others. Entirely new commodities, they come into the picture. Or commodity may be vastly different from what it used to be. See, for example, if today you look at consumption patterns of a family, OTT premiums is an important aspect of expenditure of most of the families these days. But if you compare the same 10 years back, it was not there. So when altogether an item is missing, then comparison becomes a little difficult. Right? Then next one is these index numbers, they only measure sectional price levels. So the index numbers measure only changes in the sectional price levels. So an index number that is prepared for a particular purpose might not be useful for another purpose. And an index number that helps us to study the economic conditions of, take for example, economic conditions of auto drivers. Now you cannot use the same index numbers to study the conditions of college lecturers, right? So that is the limitation. And what happens with index numbers is an entirely different set of commodities will have to be selected. So different people use different things and hold different assets. Therefore, different classes of people are affected differently by a given change in the price level. Right, so that is about unit 3 that we discussed. Now coming to unit 4, we're going to talk about the structure of banking. The different types of banking that are discussed in this. The first one is branch banking. Okay. So what is branch banking? Branch banking refers to a system in which a bank provides banking services through a wide network of branch offices. So if a bank has 10 branches in a city, then the account holders can choose a nearby branch to make deposits, withdrawals, and any other services, right? So branch banking is a system of providing banking services through different offices of a bank that acts as the head branch. So what is the idea? The idea behind this branch banking is to expand the bank's business so as to cater to people to different locations and to provide customer services to all your customers. And every branch has a manager. This manager is responsible for all the activities of that particular branch. So, what all you see today is nothing but an example of branch banking. Like SBI has a branch in Narayanguda, SBI has a branch in Dilshuknagar, SBI has a branch in Patancheru, Panjagutta, everywhere they have. So that is nothing but branch banking. So branch banking also takes up all the functions like any other regular bank, like account opening, accepting deposits, lending, fund transfer, liquidity, keeping our money safe, all the functions. Then you need to understand something called as unit banking. So what is meant by unit banking? Unit banking means a bank that does not have any branches. So it is typically small in size, and it provides services to only a specific area in which it operates. Though now in India you do not have any unit banking, you don't see any such banks like that. But theoretically, you need to know what it is. So in unit banking, see, there is no main branch that controls its functioning. Whereas what is happening in branch banking, this bank is fully controlled by another main branch. And since all the funds for the unit banking, they have to be managed by the bank itself, right? The unit bank could not get any funds from anywhere, so it has to manage everything by itself. It has to manage its funds. It has to take all the decisions. It has to decide the rate of interest, right? And granting loans also in unit banking is slightly more localized in the sense that loans are granted to people based on their capacity to repay, based on the power and authority of the local people. Then there is something called as the mixed banking. Okay, mixed banking. So what is this mixed banking? This mixed banking, it is an approach where banks undertake both commercial as well as industrial banking. Both commercial as well as industrial banking. And actually this concept of mixed banking, it actually began in mainly countries like Germany, Japan, right? Thereafter, you see it in many other countries. Then coming to chain banking. What is chain banking? Chain banking is a type of bank governance in which individuals can take control of at least 3 banks that are independently chartered, right? And how does it differ from branch banking? It differs from branch banking in the sense that these chain banks are interconnected through centralized ownerships rather than operating as a network of branches under one holding company. So what is the main advantage of chain banking? The biggest advantage of chain banking is that, it limits the risk for customers, right? See, while these chain banks, they are independently chartered, they're connected to each other through a commonality of ownership. That is a common connecting factor. So what does this ensure? This ensures that risk is spread between multiple institutions. And as you all know, when this risk is diversified or when risk is spread, the risk becomes more manageable. Another advantage of chain banking is that streamlining of operations happens through economies of scale. So the financial institutions in a chain banking system, they can make loans to each other on simpler terms, relatively, lax terms. So there is also less competition within the between the banks because they are from the they are within the same chain banking group. But again, chain banking is not very commonly seen. Uh, it is not commonly seen in India. See, one problem with chain banking is that it's reduced competition and risk. It can have an adverse effect on the banking services for that particular region. Right? That is about chain banking. Right? Next one is correspondent banking. So what is correspondent bank? Correspondent bank is a financial institution that provides services to another one. Okay? A correspondent bank is a financial institution that provides services to another bank, and it is usually in another country. So correspondent bank acts as an intermediary, it acts as an agent. What it does is it facilitates wire transfers, online transfers, conducting business transactions, accepting deposits, collecting documents on behalf of another bank. Okay. Correspondent banks are also, most likely to be used by domestic banks in order to execute transactions that either originate or are completed in some other countries. Like, domestic banks generally use correspondent banks to gain access to foreign financial markets. And you can also serve international clients without having to open any branches abroad. So, a correspondent bank, it is an authorized financial institution that provides services on behalf of another financial institution. And this correspondent bank services could include funds transfer, settlement, check clearing, wire transfers, and all these things. And the accounts held between the correspondent banks and the banks to which they are providing services, they are referred to as the Nostro and the Vostro accounts. Nostro and the Vostro accounts.
Hello. Hello. Voice is not coming, ma'am.
Ma'am, you share the PPT, ma'am, this tomorrow. మేడం వెళ్ళిపోయి ఉంటారు.
హలో క్లాస్ అయిపోయిందా